Welcome to the Her Vibe is Pretty podcast, where you'll be guided on how to step up into your evolved woman,
design your dream life, and start living it.
Let's get vibey.
Hey there, welcome back to this week's episode of Her Vibe is Pretty. And today you are getting a solo episode with me, Mary. Today we are going to be going through some of the questions, and the very juicy questions, I might add, that you guys asked about how my pregnancy is going and this whole entire pregnancy experience. So way earlier in my pregnancy, when we first found out and I first announced, we did an episode on this, very similar kind of a Q&A, but I feel like so much more has happened since being pregnant and since announcing, and I really wanted to put together an episode where I could dive a little bit deeper into this whole experience, the highs, the lows, the things that were very challenging, some of the physical challenges, the mental challenges. It has just been such a whirlwind of an experience. And now that I'm getting towards the end, so as I record this, I am 38 weeks pregnant. So the due date is coming in hot. It is gonna be here before we know it. I thought it would be the perfect time to dive a little bit deeper into some of these questions and these experiences, because let me tell you, this whole thing has taught me some of my life's most valuable lessons. It has been incredible, the different shifts in perspective I've had, some of the struggles I've had to overcome. We talk about this on the podcast a fair amount, where we say, like, be grateful for your triggers, or be grateful for the challenges in your life, or something is either a blessing or a lesson. And I can honestly say there have been so many life lessons that I have learned along this pregnancy journey. Some of them have been very happy and inspiring. Some of them have been very frustrating and hard. I've had good days and I've had bad days. And before I even dive into any of the questions that you guys asked, I just want to say that I'm only sharing from my own personal experience, okay? If I've learned anything about pregnancy, it's that it is so incredibly different for everyone, okay? And that can even vary like pregnancy to pregnancy for people. So some people have like a really easy, breezy pregnancy the first time around, and then a really hard and challenging one the next time, or vice versa. Or it's all easy, or it's all hard. It's just so incredibly different for everyone. And so I just want to, again, preface by saying I'm speaking from my own personal experience, and that I realize that there's a huge range when it comes to different things that come up throughout pregnancy for different people, okay? So I have kind of broken down all of the questions into a few different categories that I have listed over here, and I'm gonna try to get to as many of these as possible, okay? So I thought it'd be fun to kind of start out with some of the quicker answered, sort of more general questions, because I thought that'd be a fun way to start, and then we can dive a little bit deeper into some of the more deeper topics, like some of the fears, overcoming some of the anxiety, some of the struggles that have happened, some of the body image things. Like, you guys asked, like I said, some juicy stuff, and I want to get to as much of it as possible. Okay, so diving into the general questions. One of the first ones was, what did you crave? And I feel like you hear about pregnancy cravings all the time, and I didn't really have any major cravings like I thought I would, but I did start to crave things that were just weird and random and not things that I normally eat or drink. So earlier in my pregnancy, I craved Pringles, like the potato chips. I don't know if I just liked the salty, crunchy. I was also craving strawberry kiwi Gatorade, which, again, I don't really drink juice or pop or things like that besides like coffee and water usually. So what a random thing to crave. And then I was also craving Cheez-Its for a while, like this snack cracker. I'll maybe get to this a little bit later in a little bit more depth, but in my third trimester, I was diagnosed, is that the word? Diagnosed with gestational diabetes. So obviously all of those had to go. I had to just be a lot more mindful of what I was consuming. So I haven't really had any of those things lately towards the end of my pregnancy, but those were like the weird things that I craved. Next question. What is your favorite part about being pregnant? There's two things that come to mind. First and foremost, the baby kicks. I absolutely love being able to feel little baby wiggling and kicking and spinning around in my belly. I think it is the coolest thing. And I've like had some experiences too where I'll like can feel it and they're so strong. Like I've been able to feel how much stronger she has gotten over, month by month. And it's crazy because sometimes I can literally look down at my belly and I can like see her moving around inside. It's wild. So I love, love, love the baby kicks. The other thing that I really love has been the permission I've given myself to slow down. And I was kind of forced into it and it wasn't always easy. However, I do feel like it was a blessing in disguise. It was one of those things that opened my eyes to the fact that it's okay to slow down. The world is not going to end if I'm not as productive as I always am. And my body truly, truly needed it. And so I think having that permission of pregnancy to slow the heck down was just such a blessing. My least favorite part of pregnancy has hands down been getting gestational diabetes. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, no pun intended. It sucks. I do not like having to poke my finger. I do not like having to track how many carbs I'm consuming. I do not like the stress around like, am I keeping my glucose levels in check? Like, is my baby going to be healthy? Is there going to be complications with my delivery because of it? Or my pregnancy? Like, am I harming the baby? It's a very overwhelming and stressful thing. And when I first found out, I was really upset. Like I cried. I felt very overwhelmed because there's already a lot of life changes and whatnot going on when you're pregnant. But then to throw that on top of it was just, it was the worst. And thankfully, I have been able to manage it fairly well. I do a combination of tracking through testing my blood, and then I also wear like a little patch on my arm, it's called a continuous glucose meter. So I wear one of those, and having the combination of the two was really helpful for me, and actually kind of, I feel like I nerd out about this a little bit more now, but it's very fascinating to see that continuous chart of like what my glucose levels are doing in my body based on my diet and my exercise. So trying to see the silver lining there, it's definitely put my eating in check a lot. I've cut out a lot of junk food, a lot of sugar, processed sugar. I didn't eat too many unhealthy carbs. We ate a lot of whole grains, but even those you need to be mindful of. Least favorite part, hands down, the gestational diabetes, as well as I have SPD, which is like pelvic pain. That got way more severe in my third trimester and was one of those things that basically stopped my yoga practice, because anything that I did where my legs were separate, like a lunge or like walking and putting pants on or putting shoes on, I'm not kidding, like so painful and so uncomfortable. And if I aggravated it, I was like down and out for the next couple days, which was also very frustrating and forcing me to slow down again. So that was also very, very tricky, and is one of those things that it still flares up. And once in a while, again, I know some people have it way more severe than I do, but it's just a very uncomfortable and frustrating thing. So that was another crappy part at this point. I'm ready for both of those things to be over. What have you learned that you didn't know before pregnancy? I have definitely dove headfirst into learning about the pregnancy and prenatal experience for women. and I love it. I love learning about all of the different symptoms and like things that can pop up during pregnancy. I love reading about baby's development. I've been reading a lot of books, and we'll get into some of those a little bit later. I've been reading a lot of books and reading a lot of articles, and I have like a bunch of different pregnancy apps just to track and read and just learn so much, because I have no experience with kids. I don't have any young cousins that I see. My younger sister is just a couple years younger than me. She doesn't have any kids. A couple of my close friends have children, but I don't spend a ton of time with them, or didn't when they were babies. So the whole newborn thing is like brand spanking new to me, and I have had to learn everything. So a couple resources in terms of that I'll share with you are some Instagram pages I really, really love. The one that first comes to mind is Carrie Locker, and she has a newborn course and a breastfeeding course that I ended up purchasing because it was I just needed kind of a place to start from to just learn the basics. And she is a postnatal nurse, and she has an incredible Instagram page, and I have learned so much from her about just the basics of newborn care. So even though I know I'm going to be learning a lot of this like on the fly, like as baby gets here, and I realize that all babies are different, this has been just a really helpful way to make me feel more confident going into this, knowing that I at least understand the basics. So that's been a big thing that I knew nothing about before pregnancy. Are you using breathwork during delivery? Yes, 1000%. So I have not been doing my normal breathwork, which is a more intense pattern and honestly not recommended for pregnant people. And so instead, I've been practicing a breath that is just a deep breath in through the nose, deep breath out the mouth. So just like a circular breath, just like that. Big breath in through the nose, big breath out through the mouth. And I plan to use that breath pattern throughout labor and delivery to help my body calm and relax during those intense contractions. Again, I've never been in labor before, so we will see how that goes, but that is my plan. And I've been doing pretty regularly the relaxation breathwork by Sam Colowart on my yoga app. So if you go to the yoga app, there's an entire category on breathwork, and it's the relaxation breathwork that I've been practicing. It is one of my all-time favorite. Actually, I would say it's my absolute favorite on the app. It's so calming. Her words are just like exactly what you need to hear. And it just puts me in such a powerful, or I don't want to say powerful. It's a powerful practice that puts me in such a calm state of mind. So that is something that I absolutely plan to implement and use as a tool during labor to allow my body to soften and open and relax while baby is trying to make her way into the world. Will you use the pregnancy pillow after baby arrives? So I haven't really talked about this on the podcast before, and this makes me laugh. I'm obsessed with my pregnancy pillow. Absolutely obsessed. It is the comfiest thing in the world. I don't know why everyone doesn't use one beyond pregnancy. However, I will say, it's like a giant cocoon. So it literally like wraps from one side of my body, like all the way up over my head, and then down the other side of my body. And so it is a little isolating in bed where Jake and I are very divided, which I don't love that. Even though him and I are not huge like snugglers necessarily, I do feel like it kind of puts like a wall between us. But it is the comfiest thing ever. So I definitely see myself using it, just probably not every single night like I'm currently using it. But if you are pregnant and if you are struggling to sleep, highly, highly, highly recommend getting a pregnancy pillow. It has been a game changer for me. My sweet sister got it for me as a gift during the second trimester, and I'm obsessed. It has been just like the greatest thing ever. So highly recommend pregnancy pillows. What cream did you use for stretch marks? So there were 3 or 4 that I've kind of been just switching between. So another thing I want to say that I've learned is that stretch marks are not like completely avoidable. Some people are more prone to getting them than others. So even if you do everything right, you still might get them, and that's okay. Don't let that be a bad thing. Don't let that be something that you are ashamed of, because it's kind of out of your hands, like so many other things in pregnancy. But the lotions and creams that I used Earth Mama Belly Butter, I think is what it's called. So I'll try to find the links for these. And then I used a Burt's Bees Mama Bee Belly Butter. And then I use, it's called Egyptian Magic. I got it at Costco. You can get it at the Egyptian Magic. If you Google Egyptian Magic, you'll find it. It's like a oily kind of, what do you want to call, like a salve almost? Like it's made of all like natural ingredients. And so I would use that at night. I'd put one of those lotions on, and then on top of that, I would layer on this Egyptian Magic, and it gets kind of oily. So if you're like, maybe want to wear like a shirt or something over it when you go to bed, I just have kind of been like, screw it, and like getting my sheets and my pillow dirty. But I just like slather that on my belly. And then I also got a bunch of different just like oils, kind of like coconut oil is not one of them, but I feel like they're all kind of the same. Like there's baby brain. I can't remember what exactly they are. But I just Googled like what are good oils to use for stretch marks. And then I went on Amazon and ordered like organic versions of those. And so far so good. I feel like my stomach is the softest that skin has ever been because I am using more lotion than I ever normally did. But highly recommend those. So the Earth Mama brand has like the belly butter, and then Burt's Bees, and then the Egyptian Magic. I see you are resting a lot. What have you filled your time with, and what are the positives that you have been finding through rest? So I touched on this a little bit. I have been spending a lot more time reading. I've been spending a lot more time watching and learning through these like videos. Like I said, I took that Carrie Locker course that I found super, super helpful, and just working through those. So when I just kind of feel like I need a rest, I'll go to the couch, I'll lie down, I'll bring my laptop with me, and I'll watch like one of the modules or something like that. Or I'll read an article, or I'll read one of my books. And that has been kind of one of the ways that I have filled my time. But one of the other things, like one of the positives that I found through giving myself that permission to rest is the fact that everything will still work out. Like you can still be productive even if you're not hustling and grinding all the time. This was like a really big lesson that I needed to learn, because I tend to, and I know we talk about this on the podcast, but I tend to be that person. Like one of my limiting beliefs is that to be successful, to make money, I need to work really hard. I need to always be working. And this has been one of the first times where I've really pumped the brakes on a lot of that and given myself that permission to rest when I need it. And I am not kidding when I say I've been basically just as productive. I wouldn't say I've been more productive necessarily. There have definitely been some areas where I've slacked and then other areas where I've done more. But things haven't stalled out the way that I thought they would. And it's kind of the proof that my mind needed to see that that's okay. You know, I was putting these made up timelines on things that was stressing me out and making me hustle and just in sucking the fun out of it. And I realize now, like, it doesn't have to be that way. And so that has been a very, very powerful lesson that I've learned, that it's okay to take rest. So whether you are currently pregnant, or even if you're not pregnant and just listening to this, when you feel that urge to rest, listen to that that means your body needs it, okay? And it doesn't have to be like a lazy rest, if that makes sense. Like a lot of times all I would do is I would take a break. And like I said, I would do something where I could just, recline back or lie down on the couch, or I would like do that breathwork session, like that relaxation breathwork from the app, or I would watch one of those videos. So I was still doing things that felt aligning with the work I was doing or work I was wanting to be doing, but was also giving myself that break that I really needed. So I highly recommend that you give it a try, because I think we can all be guilty at times of putting a little bit too much on our plate, and it's just not necessary. So if you're feeling that burnout, if you're feeling like you need rest, that's a sign that you need to pump the brakes a little bit and give yourself some space to do those things that help you fill your cup. Okay, a little bit of a controversial question, this next one. And again, I just want to say, not here to have a debate, not here to give any personalized advice. This is just simply my decision and what I decided to do after consulting with, my inner circle and my doctor. Vaccinations during pregnancy. So I decided not to get the COVID vaccine during my pregnancy. I did decide to get the flu shot because it was highly recommended by my doctor. So I got that very early on. And then when it came down to getting the COVID vaccine, I talked again to my doctor. Mind you, at the time that we were having this discussion, there were no studies on pregnant people. So she did not recommend getting it, and I decided not to get it. Another reason being that my lifestyle was pretty isolated to begin with, because I work from home. I was seeing some people, but they were people that were in kind of like my bubble or my inner circle, and it was very rare, and we were making sure that we all felt good and felt healthy. But with all of those factors playing into that role, I just decided that I wanted to wait to get the COVID vaccine until after the baby is delivered. So I plan on getting it once baby is here. And I've learned that if I get that and I breastfeed, that those antibodies will go into the baby and help protect the baby. So again, I am not a doctor. I am not telling anyone what they should or should not do. This is totally a personal choice, and I respect people being able to make that choice on their own. That is just the decision that I made, and I feel very good about it. So yeah, really good question. How old are you? So I am 31 and will have baby when I'm 31. I turn 32 later this year. But yeah, I'm in my 30s. And then this last one, very fun one, also very personal and also maybe not safe for work or children. So fair warning. What is having sex life like during pregnancy? So I won't lie. I've heard about pregnant people wanting to have sex more, like their sex drive is like heightened, and I totally experienced that. It has come in waves. And I will say the one thing that is kind of weird is that the bigger your belly gets, the longer throughout pregnancy, it gets harder and harder to move, which makes it a little bit harder when you're having sex. So, we've done the very best that we can. It definitely just kind of looks just like a yoga practice. Things have had to be modified, if you will. But it's definitely one of those things that we've done basically throughout the entire thing, and it's overall been good, but it has just been a little bit different because it's just hard to move your body when you're really pregnant. So those were the general questions that we had. And so I want to get into a little bit more about movement and yoga. So there were a lot of questions about yoga, as well as some body image questions that I want to get to as well after that I think play a role into some of this movement stuff. So one of the first questions is what sports, what movement, and your diet, what did that look like during pregnancy? And so my yoga practice changed significantly during my pregnancy. I was so tired and somewhat nauseated during the first trimester that I just didn't feel like practicing very much. My practice was very gentle, mostly seated. I just didn't feel like it. Getting into some of those poses, I would do a little bit here and there, but I just really did not feel like practicing. And then in my second trimester, I feel like I got this brand new like rush of energy, and I felt so much more inspired to move my body and to practice yoga. So that's actually when I recorded a vast majority of the prenatal yoga classes that you'll find on my yoga app. Were filmed during that second trimester when I was just feeling a lot better and had the energy to move. And then going into my third, that was when my pelvic pain started to really kick in, and that slowed me down a lot because, again, anything where my legs were not together, which is like nothing in yoga, like chair pose or standing at the top of your mat, like nothing felt good. Everything felt very uncomfortable. So I've really cut back a lot on my yoga, and I can honestly say I miss it so much. But what's more important than forcing myself to get up and do something is to honor and listen to my body. Okay? And so that's the biggest takeaway that I want to share here is that, again, this is my experience, and I get messages from other people who are pregnant and that say, oh my gosh, I'm just so tired. I feel so bad that I am not practicing yoga like I used to. I'm going to lose all my progress. And it's like, all I can say is please honor your body during this time and know that it is so okay to slow down. It's okay if you don't have the energy or it physically hurts your body. Like, the last thing you want to be doing is forcing yourself to do something that you really don't want to be doing or that doesn't feel good in your body. So give yourself that break. Take that pressure off of yourself. You are growing a human. Your body is doing a lot of work behind the scenes, which is so incredible. And just like, man, my mind is blown at like the human body and what it's capable of doing. And so it's okay to cut back on what you're used to doing. You're not that person anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going through this huge change in your body. And so it's like, you need to adjust to that. And it's okay if you're not doing the things that you were doing before. And then in terms of diet, so again, I'm kind of a special case here. In the first trimester, I ate like literally anything that sounded good because I had almost no appetite. Nothing sounded good to me. So if anything did, it was like, oh, eat it while you can. In the second trimester, I gave into some of my cravings, of course. Like, I'm not one to follow any sort of really strict diet. I tend to eat a little bit more intuitive. However, I also wanted to be nourishing my body, and I loved the idea that like everything that I was consuming was like going to baby. And with that in mind, it made me want to eat healthier. It made me want to really nourish my body. So it doesn't mean that I never ate my Pringles and Cheez-Its and drank my strawberry kiwi Gatorade and stuff, but I also did it in moderation, okay? But then where I say like I'm kind of a special case here, then getting the gestational diabetes, that shifted my diet a ton. And I have eaten probably the cleanest and the most consistent, like little bit of sugar, way fewer carbs, lots of fruit, or not lots of fruits, some fruit, but lots of veggies, lots of healthy proteins, lots of healthy fats, and healthy carbs, of course, because you do need to consume healthy carbs as well for energy for baby. But I had to shift my diet a lot. And so I would say, like, I wouldn't recommend a strict diet to anyone who's pregnant. And of course, I guess I should have probably said this before, but always talk to your doctor too and see what your doctor recommends. Talk to them, do some research and see, what are recommended foods, and then compared to the kind of diet that you like, the foods that you enjoy, of course you want to be eating as healthy as possible so that, all of that nourishment's going to baby. But I don't recommend any strict diet. And that's, again, one of the things I hate the most about having the diabetes is that I'm constantly thinking about diet, and I don't like doing that. What postures should we avoid during pregnancy? So, let me get on my soapbox here for a second. I feel like there is so much fearful advice given out about yoga during pregnancy. And I don't like that. And I I just want to be that voice of change, because through this process, there is no like black and white. There is no rules that fit for everyone, because we are all so unique. Our bodies are also unique. And it's just not a one size fits all. We can't pretend that it is. So there isn't like a never ever do this, you can only do this, because that might work for some people, but probably not everyone. And that was one of the things that I loved the most about my prenatal yoga teacher training, was really learning and feeling confident in myself, empowering myself to make these modifications and make these decisions in my own practice, and know that I am the one in charge, okay? So what I mean by that is, no matter what you're doing, whether it is yoga or some other sort of physical activity, you need to listen to your own body. You need to decide what feels good for you, what doesn't feel good for you. And you need to be honest with yourself, because now is not the time to like push yourself to the extremes. Not the time. This is the time for you to really tune in and listen to your body. And trust me, when your body is going through these pregnancy changes, it'll speak to you. You'll feel things in a little bit of a weird way, and it'll be like, ooh, yeah, that's too far. I don't want to go there. So with that being said, I also want to add, definitely talk to your doctor first, because if there are any sort of prior health conditions that you have or any concerns with your pregnancy, they might be giving you very specific advice when it comes to movement or exercise or yoga or anything like that. So always check with them first, number one. Number two, tune into your own body, listen to your own body, and trust yourself. If something feels good in your body, you can consider that as a sign that it's okay and safe to do. If something does not feel good in your body, that's another sign that probably should be something you should either ease up on or modify. I always recommend in all of my classes, move a little bit slower, explore this new body that you have, because your body is changing so rapidly that you need to be able to like roll with the changes. So something that maybe was totally fine for you to practice in your first trimester feels awful in your second trimester or your third. Or vice versa, you don't know, because your body's always changing. So take it a little bit slower than maybe you did before. Start to get familiar with, what's happening in your body and what's going on within, and then honor and listen to that. As far as like things to avoid, so again, these are things that I would recommend taking slower. At first, they are not necessarily things to 100% avoid, okay? Again, if it feels okay for you, you're okay to do it. If it does not feel okay for you, which a lot of these things I'm about to mention probably won't as you progress through your pregnancy, modify, okay? So some of the things that are like the most common that you'll see are doing like deep abdominal twists. So again, when you've got a big belly, it does not feel good to twist. Even for me, like early, before I was even really showing, it did not feel good to twist. Same with any position where you're lying on your belly. So like a cobra pose or a bow pose. No way. I mean, once your belly's there, you can't even do it. But I didn't even personally, that did not feel good for me to put that pressure on my belly. It felt like being bloated and doing it, and ew, like the worst. So I avoided doing those types of back bends. Another one is people will say like inversions. And I know plenty of yogis that have done inversions like well into their third trimester. So again, if you have a solid inversion practice, you can continue to practice that as long as that feels good for you. If you're not very confident in your inversion practice, probably not the best time for you to be trying to master your handstand because your weight balance is going to be all off and that sort of thing. Abdominal work. So that's another one where everyone's like, you read all these things like, don't do anything like that. Don't do core stuff. And again, that's not necessarily the case. There are ways that you can engage your core safely and in ways that feel good in your body while you are pregnant. However, you don't want to be overdoing it. Doing things that are crunching the belly and like squeezing in, that's not going to feel good for you. It's going to be very uncomfortable in your body. So if you're doing like a bunch of crunches, I'm pretty sure that most pregnant people are going to do that and feel like, I don't want to do that anymore. But there are other ways that you can engage. So for example, when you're on your hands and your knees, for example, in like a tabletop pose, you can feel, and just like what I like to say is like hug baby in towards the body. And doing that is going to start to engage the muscles in those deep abdominal muscles to help strengthen your core in a way that's not crunching and squeezing in when you're starting to create more space there, if that makes sense. So I hope that you're able to follow that via like this podcast, because it can be kind of tricky. But again, the rule of thumb always comes back to making sure that you are doing what's best for you, what feels good in your body. Oh, another one that I'll mention too are deep back bends. So, hi, I'm someone that hates back bending. It does not come natural to me. It does not, honestly, feels very stiff in my body when I'm not pregnant. And so I cut out back bends almost immediately when I was pregnant. On the other hand, there are some people that do full-blown wheel and deep back bends well into their third trimester. So again, it's not this one-size-fits-all thing that just is going to work for everyone. You know, you need to listen to yourself. You need to listen to your own body and do what's best for you. And I want you to feel empowered to do that. And that's like probably one of my favorite things about prenatal yoga is the fact that, you know, I say this in all my classes, but I mean it even more during my prenatal classes. Like, we are our own best teachers, okay? We are our own best teachers. We know what's best for us if we take that time to slow down and tune in, okay? With that being said, if we're trying to hustle through this yoga practice, we're not giving ourselves that opportunity to tune in and really pay attention to what's going on. That's what can lead to injuries or hurting yourself and that sort of thing. So anyways, I'll get off my soapbox of all of the things that I have to say about prenatal yoga, but it can be a very beneficial thing. So that's another one of the questions is how can yoga help during pregnancy? I think it helps you connect to your body on a different level. And with all of the shifts and all of the changes that are happening, it really helps you tune into that present moment and savor in all of the shifts and all of the changes that are happening and learning to appreciate them. Like even the ones that you're like, you know, I'm feeling these like aches and pains and I'm feeling stiffness in places I've never felt before. And that can either be something that you're frustrated by, or yoga encourages you, prenatal yoga especially, encourages you to tune into that and pay attention to that and modify to that. And now you're moving, you know, a practice that you've maybe done 1,000 times when you weren't pregnant, you're doing again now, and it feels like you're stepping on your mat for the first time because you're doing it in a new way. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that, but I think that we can sometimes get overpowered with like that idea of like, oh, it's not how it used to be, so it's not as good. And that's just not true, in my opinion. I have not worked out my entire first trimester. How do I get back in my routine? I was the same. I was in the same exact spot, listen to yourself, see when you feel like practicing again. Start small and know that you don't need to be doing the same exact things that you were doing before. It's going to look different, and that's totally okay. I definitely think it's good to move as much as possible throughout your entire pregnancy. I think it really helped with me preventing a lot of aches and pains on the front end. Like I said, some of them continued to creep in towards the end there, but overall, I was very, very comfortable throughout most of my pregnancy. I had moments where I wasn't, but it was overall pretty good. And I think a lot of that had to do with me stretching in a very gentle way. The other thing I want to add to about yoga specifically is that throughout pregnancy, our body releases a hormone called relaxin, which is perfectly named because it helps relax the ligaments in our body, which allow us to stretch a little bit further than maybe we could before. And it's what helps our body expand and create room for baby to grow and for baby to eventually be born through labor and delivery. And so it's like a very good hormone to have. However, you can tend to go deeper into some stretches than maybe you could before. So a tip to keep in mind is that during pregnancy, this is again not the time to like push things to the max. Instead, let it be this time that you are able to maybe not go 100%, but maybe go more like 50 to 60% into the stretch, or just to that point where you feel the sensation, but not pushing it as absolutely far as you can. Okay. So that's another really good reminder to keep in mind when you are practicing yoga or really any activity throughout pregnancy. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about body because I got some questions that I'm sure have very positive intentions when being asked, but I also think can be sort of a dangerous mindset to get into. So someone asked, how did you keep your weight down and not blow up like a balloon? And how much weight have you gained? Okay, so again, every single pregnancy is different for people. When I talk to my mom, her pregnancy and the way that her body shifted when she was growing me was different than when she had my sister and was pregnant with my sister, which is different than the pregnancy I'm having now, which is different than the pregnancy anyone else is going to have. So you can't judge anything by just saying, how much weight did you gain, or have this pressure on yourself to like keep your weight down and not blow up like a balloon, as the person asked. So it's one of those things that, again, can be a very touchy subject. I don't talk about weight too much in general here on the podcast or on my Instagram page at all. But the things that I always keep coming back to are the importance of taking good care of yourself. So keeping your stress down, keeping a positive attitude, moving your body on a regular basis in ways that feel good for you, if they feel good for you, and then eating in a way that nourishes your body, does not leave you feeling deprived of food or hungry. That's the last thing you want to do, is go on any sort of like extreme diet or limit yourself while your body is literally growing a human. Like, you're going to gain weight during pregnancy. Your body is going to shift and change during pregnancy. And you don't need to be absolutely perfect every single day, but you want to just do the best you can to put your body in the best place it can be to grow this baby. So again, this is how my body responded to being pregnant. I don't honestly even know how much weight I gained because I don't have a scale, so I haven't really weighed myself. I've gotten measurements at the doctor, but I don't really know what my starting weight was. And then as far as again, I got gestational diabetes, so I had to eat really, really clean and had to limit certain things. But with that being said, I still found very healthy, yummy, and nutritious foods that I enjoyed eating that didn't spike my blood sugar. And I feel really great. That's the cool thing, is overall I feel really good. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that I'm eating healthy foods. I'm drinking tons of water, and I'm keeping my mental health in check. I'm not moving a ton. Complete transparency there. I'm definitely not working out these days because I really can't. I do a little bit of weights where mostly it's my upper body, and I've been doing some like deadlifts because my legs can stay together, and that's like the only thing I can really do. It this is not the time to put body pressures on yourself. So I hope I'm making that clear. It's one of those things where it breaks my heart when I see people feel down on themselves for how they look during pregnancy, when really you should just be so in awe of your incredible body, of the miracle that's happening within, and all of the shifts and changes that are happening for you throughout the months. And that's the other thing too. And I know I'm not going to go into this now in depth, but there's so much pressure from our society to like bounce back after the baby's born, and what's your body gonna look like? And again, it's like, it took us 9 months to get to this point. Our body's not just gonna snap back. Some people do, and a lot of people don't, and that's okay. Remember what your body did. It created a human, an entire human, a new life. Like, that alone is such a miracle to me, and that alone should be the primary focus on your body, is that you took such good care of your body, that you nourished this unborn baby for 9 months. I mean, it's incredible. So I just want to touch on a couple of those things because I think they're very, very important points. All right, so I only got to about half of the questions that you guys asked. I'm not kidding when I said you asked so many questions and so many good ones, but there are a lot of things that I still want to cover, and I'm going to cover those in a second part 2 episode. So some of the things that I want to share in part 2 and dive deeper into are the questions about the fears, some of the books that really helped settle my mind and help me wrap my mind around giving birth, labor, and delivery, some things about my birth plan, as well as some baby stuff. Like, what are some of the things that I have found that I recommend? There are quite a few questions on that as well. So I will plan on answering those questions in a part 2 episode of this whole chat. But I just want to thank you again so much for listening and for submitting such great questions. You guys are truly the best. And I can't wait for you to listen to the second part of this conversation about being pregnant, because it's just such a roller coaster ride. But with that being said, be sure to join our Facebook group, Her Vibe is Pretty Podcast, as well as our Instagram page, which is at Her Vibe is Pretty Podcast. And we are also now streaming our episodes on YouTube. So you can find them by searching Her Vibe is Pretty Podcast, as well as we have a link in our bio. So if you do check out our YouTube, it would mean the world if you could subscribe to our channel, as well as comment and watch some of the episodes that we post there. It's just another fun way for you to listen to the podcast, but also watch us like interact. It's kind of like we're chatting together, which I love. So thank you so much for being here. Love you to the moon, and I will catch you next week on Her Vibe is Pretty. Bye.